Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Judgement Silversword Resurrection, the Wonder Swan classic brought to the PC. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. Judgement Silversword originally released on Bandai's Wonder Swan Color back in 2004. In 2011, it would see release as Judgement Silversword Resurrection, so basically this version with the Xbox 360 version of Eschatos. In 2015, Dejica brought Eschatos and Judgement Silversword Resurrection over to Steam, but not included together. They're separate games. Unfortunately, since Eschatos is also an excellent game, I highly encourage that you check that one out as well. But this one is relatively cheap and affordable, and it includes two games, Judgement Silversword Rebirth Edition and its sequel, Cardinal Sins Recycle Edition. So these are of course ports of the Wonder Swan originals, the Wonder Swan being a relatively small handheld machine that was only released in Japan. So diving right in, let's take a look and see what we have in Judgement Silversword. Developed by MK, an indie programmer who would later go on to be part of the Studio Cute, who happens to be working on a new title called Natsuki Chronicles, although that's a different story for a different day. Their games, all of them that I've played, I've really enjoyed. So this one is worth checking out based on that recommendation. So as we start the game, we have 3 difficulty levels that we can select between. There's also a special mode that you can unlock, but at this point I have not. So the game is actually really hard, or it can get really hard. So the stages are broken up into, well, the stages are different areas, and I believe there are 31 areas in the normal gameplay, though you can exceed beyond that if you've completed the game. So it's your standard vertical scrolling fare where we have enemies largely coming from the top or from the sides of the screens and firing shots at us. The areas, the objective is actually to complete them as quickly as possible. We'll get point bonuses for doing so. Our ship is equipped with basically 3 weapons. 2 of them are weapons, one of them is actually a defensive weapon. So we have our spread shot, which I would recommend using for most circumstances as you cover the stage the best. But we also have the straight laser, which is great for taking out more powerful enemies, sub-bosses, that sort of thing. Like this guy here, we'll totally use the straight laser on. And then we also have a defensive shield, which will both deal damage to enemies if we come into physical contact with the shield, and it will also absorb bullets. It has an energy meter though, and located in the lower left of the screen, so keep an eye on that if you are using the shield, because eventually it will wear out, although it does have a physical representation of getting smaller and weaker as you use your shield. It is possible to build up a multiplier with the enemies, but that only exists in normal or hard difficulties. There is no multiplier on normal difficulty. Ever so few areas you'll encounter bosses. The first boss that we actually encounter is Area 5. Here comes the judge, Mitsurugi. Mitsurugi is a shield-carrying mech trying to lay into us with that giant sword. Slice. To defeat him, we just need to destroy it or its sword, and we'll move on to the next section. And that basically is what we have for Judgement Silversword. It's relatively straightforward, but its ease of pickup and play does add to a little bit of fun. Could be a bigger variety into the enemy patterns, but it's still fun as is for what it is, though definitely, like I said, it's hard. So let's take a quick second to hop back to the main menu and look at its sequel, Cardinal Sins. This is the game that I like better of the two. So we basically have the same kind of setup with our ship and the weapons and shield that we have available, but when we jump in, we have each stage has a theme that's basically one of the 7 cardinal sins. The first one is envy. Destroy them all. So each stage, each cardinal sin has a particular goal associated with it. So for envy, the goal is to destroy all the enemies. The second stage that we'll encounter is Sloth, and we'll cover the goal that we get to there. Each stage is 1 minute long, and then we'll receive a grade and a bonus based off our grade. So the grades can go anywhere from F to A and S if you actually happen to perfect the particular objective, which can be quite difficult, really. So if you're shooting for the utter perfection of S's in all the categories, I wish you the best of luck. As we near the end of the stage, we'll start to hear a beeping once we hit the 10-second mark. And goal! 99.4% destruction. So we did let one enemy get away. Sloth, get more lives. So this is the point where I really started to like this mode, where it was like, what? We've got all these different stages that have different objectives? Oops. So in Sloth, you get a lot of enemies dropping 1-ups, but if you're not careful, you can destroy those 1-ups by shooting them, like so. No! And the goal in Sloth is to collect as many 1-ups as we possibly can. Oops, we've already destroyed like 3, though. Aha! Got another one. And we're graded on how many 1-ups that we're ultimately able to pick up throughout the course of the gameplay. It's really tricky because you have to manage to destroy as many enemies as possible to get the 1-ups, but then you have to stop shooting for a second to actually collect the 1-ups. And that's the way that Cardinal Sins basically goes. You have all 7 of the Cardinal Sins with different objectives, and it definitely gets harder as it goes. So I just love this game. I love that gameplay. And the challenge of coming back and getting better, great stuff. So as far as minus flavors are concerned, the enemy variety could be a little larger, but given the system that it was developed for, it's still a pretty good game. But it is maybe a little bit too difficult, and it would take quite a bit of time to master the game to the point where, at least with Judgement Silversword, you were actually able to clear the game. Fortunately, Cardinal Sins is more just a short score attack where you're playing it for about 8-9 minutes at a time, and that I feel is really satisfying. Though there's its other modes as well. There's the marathon mode where you're playing the same stage over and over again, but with increasing enemy difficulty, which is really neat. But yeah, having all those different Cardinal Sins with different objectives. So here we are in Greed, and what are we being greedy about? We're being greedy about the enemy data. So we're collecting different enemy data by destroying enemies, by letting them get off attacks, by absorbing bullets, by getting shot by bullets. Great stuff. So as far as plus flavors are concerned, the game does have online leaderboards, and that's one of the things that I think really helps a score attack game like this one, where you can keep on testing yourself and getting better and better against others in an online community. That's just awesome. And since it's designed for a portable, it's relatively short and has great pick up and play capabilities. I just love that about this kind of game. So Judgement Silversword Resurrection is an easy recommend for me. All the games that I've played from Cute have definitely been wins, and this one is no exception. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.